Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing a tier list of every episode of Batman the Animated Series plus the Adventures of Batman and Robin. Little caveat at the start: the two-part stories I've just lumped together as one because you can't really, well, I suppose you could rank one episode above another, but I'm just going to rate them as a whole. Um, my ranking system is S, obviously, for the best, and F for the worst. So now that the little explanation and the preamble's out of the way, let's get started. So I've arranged the episodes in alphabetical order, and let's see what we've got here. So first of all, A Bullet for Bullock. Now I actually really like this episode. I think it's a really good character episode focusing on Harvey Bullock and a mystery into someone trying to kill him. So I'm putting it as an A because I thought it was great. Really great music in that episode as well, actually. Kind of a jazzy score that you don't often see in Batman the Animated Series. Moving on to Almost Got Him. Well, it has to go in S rank. It's one of the best episodes, I think, of the whole series. Great episode in which the villains sit down, play a game of poker, and talk about the times where they almost got Batman. Appointment in Crime Alley. Now, this one's a good one, but it's not one that I would direct people to if they've never seen it and I wanted them to get interested in it. I'd never say, go watch Appointment in Crime Alley. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a B. Avatar. So this one's slightly different in tone. It's a bit more of a horror story. I remember Kevin Altieri, the director of the episode, saying that he wanted this episode to be like an old Hammer horror movie. And being English, yeah, of course I love old Hammer horror movies. But again, it's not really one that I would direct people to watch. It's very different in tone to the noir crime stuff that I really like. So for that reason, I'm giving it a C. So not bad, not bad by any means, quite good, but nothing to write home about really. Baby Doll. Baby Doll. Now this is a really good one. It's on paper it's a ridiculous premise. An actor who has a disease that has prevented her from growing up beyond the age of about 6 or 7. At least physically, she looks 6 or 7, having a psychotic breakdown and trying to reclaim her glory days of fame. But it's actually really profound, and I genuinely enjoyed that one quite a lot. So I'm giving it an A rank. Bane. This is one of the later episodes, and again, it's a good episode. It's got some neat stuff in there, some references to the comic books where Bane breaks Batman's back. Again, perfectly good. I'm going to give it a B. Same thing with Batgirl Returns, I think. No, this is another good episode. Nice little mystery in it with Batgirl and Catwoman teaming up to find out who stole I think it was a jade cat statue. But again, it's not going to be one of those episodes that I'd place on a pedestal and present to the universe and say, please, everyone watch this show. Okay, next we've got Be a Clown. Now, this is one of the early episodes where the animation was a little bit wonky, and originally the Joker was voiced by Tim Curry, but they ended up replacing him for whatever reasons, and Mark Hamill came on board to voice the Joker. And it's a perfectly okay episode, but I think because it's got fairly shoddy animation in some parts and the script isn't really my cup of tea, it's kind of like a stranger danger kind of story almost. So I'm going to give it a D. Now, Beware the Grey Ghost is a fan favourite episode because it features Adam West portraying the Grey Ghost, Bruce Wayne's childhood hero, like a movie star or TV show star. I'm giving it an A because I think it is a really good episode. It's got some really nice music in it as well. Yeah. Now, Birds of a Feather. This is a Penguin episode. Now, Penguin didn't actually have very many great episodes in this show, at least to start with. But this one is probably one of the best ones. And it's about the Penguin getting out of prison and trying to integrate with high society, and basically how cruel high society is and how they mock him. I'm actually going to give it an A because I did really enjoy that one. It was very good. Speaking of not so great Penguin episodes, blind as a bat. So in this episode, the Penguin steals an attack helicopter from Wayne Enterprises, and there's an explosion, and the bright light from the explosion blinds Bruce Wayne, and he has to go around being Batman while he's blind and get the attack helicopter back. Again, it's another one where the animation's not great, and it's okay, but I'm going to give it a D. Cape and the Camel Conspiracy. Now, this one was actually based on an issue of the comics. If I'd done my research ahead of time, I could have told you which one. But it's basically a master thief that uses dangerous traps to get what he wants from people. Is hired to get Batman's cowl, and I think it's perfectly good. Again, animation's not amazing in it. But yeah, it's a perfectly fine episode, so I'm putting that as C. Now, the Cat and the Claw. This is going to be Cat and the Claw Part 1 and Part 2. These were the first episodes to air in the UK, where I live. And I still vividly remember that first episode with the opening shot of Catwoman scaling the building and using her cat Isis to break into someone's apartment and steal their jewellery. Again, it's one of those early episodes, the scripts can kind of be a bit hit and miss, but I think it's perfectly fine. I don't think it's particularly inspiring, but it's perfectly fine, so I'm giving it a C. Both parts, C. Now, the next Catwoman episode, Cat Scratch Fever. The villainous Roland Daggett is developing a man-made virus that he is infecting stray animals with, and so that he can magically come up with the cure and sell it as a premium. Unfortunately, his henchmen steal Catwoman's cat Isis and infect her, which brings it to the attention of Catwoman. It's not very good. I'm giving this one an E. Now, this Catwalk, I think, is probably the best Catwoman episode in the whole series. So Selina Kyle is trying to go straight after the events of the previous episode. She's been given final warnings from the authorities. If she ever wears the Catwoman costume again to break the law, she's going to jail. And she gets roped in to one last heist by another villain who ends up betraying her. But I thought it was really good. Really enjoyed it. Christmas with the Joker. Again, early Joker episode, originally voiced by Tim Curry. The episode opens with the Joker escaping from Arkham Asylum on a rocket-powered Christmas tree, so it doesn't really kind of fit in with the tone of the rest of the show. It's not as serious. There's nothing wrong with it. My wife and I watch this episode every Christmas just as a tradition, but I don't think it's great, so I'm putting it there as a D. The Clock King. Now, this one is actually quite a good episode, and uses it's centered around quite an obscure villain, the Clock King, who in the comics has got like this green and white costume with like a clock face mask. But in this, he's reimagined as a man in like a brown suit with a bowler hat, who's just really organised, and he knows the schedules of everything in Gotham, and he uses that knowledge to his advantage to terrorise Hamilton Hill, the mayor. I'm giving it a B. It's a really good episode. Really enjoyed it. But it doesn't quite have the added emotional or the emotional kick, or just that extra special sauce that would justify a higher ranking. Day of the Samurai. Again, it's another one that's perfectly fine. We have the ninja Kyodai Ken is seeking out a secret martial arts scroll that enables him to kill someone with one blow, and Batman has to try and stop him. It's nice. If you've ever seen the gif of Bruce Wayne deflecting a blow and then like slapping a guy back, that's from this episode. Deep Freeze. Now, this is another later episode with Mr. Freeze, and I feel like this second episode with Mr. Freeze isn't as strong as the first one. Little spoiler for later on. But Mr. Freeze is broken out of Stonegate Prison, and he's taken to a theme park sort of colony type thing that's run by like a crazy Walt Disney type who wants to freeze the whole world, kill everyone outside, and then let him and his people take over the Earth. It's better than I described it, so I'm giving that one a B. Demon's Quest is another episode based on the comics, the introduction of Ra's al Ghul, which is how you would say it in Arabic, my Sudanese friend tells me. In the cartoon, they say Ra's al Ghul, and that's what you would say in Hebrew, apparently, according to my Sudanese friend. I think it's a solid episode. It doesn't really fit the tone of the rest of the show so much because it's a bit of a globe-trotting adventure with like Batman and Ra's al Ghul stripped to the waist having sword fights in the desert. But it's an iconic comic book story, so for that reason alone, it needs to get at least a B. Dreams in Darkness. Now this one is Batman gets a dose of the Scarecrow's fear toxin and ends up locked up in Arkham Asylum, where he's trying to convince everyone that the Scarecrow is going to be poisoning the water, but no one believes him. I'm kind of torn between a B and a C, to be honest, because it's a good premise. It's an enjoyable enough episode, but it doesn't really like linger in my mind the way that some of these higher ranked ones do. I'm going to give it a B. Same as Appointment in Crime Alley, actually. I'm going to give it a B. Eternal Youth. It's a Poison Ivy episode in which Poison Ivy lures executives of large companies to her spa and resort where she poisons them and turns them into trees. Perfectly enjoyable episode, but again, doesn't really linger in my mind. Fear of Victory is another Scarecrow episode in which the Scarecrow attempts to rig sporting events by dosing the star athletes with his fear toxin. Again, perfectly good episode, perfectly enjoyable. I think I'll probably give it a C. Now, Feet of Clay. Both parts here. Part 1 has got some janky animation. But part 2 has got some of the best animation in the whole series. Like the Clayface transformations are excellent, and the voice acting sublime. I mean, I'm teasing you all here by placing it at F, but really, it's right in the top rank for me. That first episode actually really traumatized me as a child, and I'm still a little bit bothered by it. But I just think there's so much you can say about their take on Clayface. Maybe I'll go into it some other time so I don't eat up too much time, but this is just... Fire from Olympus. Again, it's another good episode, perfectly fine. It's about Maxi Zeus, a shipping magnate who thinks he's the Greek god Zeus. Batman's investigating him for, I think it was arms smuggling, if I'm remembering rightly. Perfectly fine. Never really enters my head at any time unless I actively sit down and think about it. So, for that reason, it's getting a C. Now, The Forgotten. Now, this is actually a bit of a fan favourite in some circles. Like Bruce Wayne has lost his memory after investigating the kidnapping of homeless people. And he's ambushed. They clobber him around the head. He loses his memory, and they take him to work in a mine in the desert. And it's just like, I don't know. Personally, I don't really like this episode very much. I think the animation's a bit wonky. It's another one of those early episodes where they hadn't really found their footing. But I will give it an E. There's some nice stuff in there, but overall, it's one I'd rather forget about, to be honest. Harlequin Aid. Now, this one is a Harley Quinn-centric episode in which she is enlisted to help Batman and Robin find the Joker after he steals an atom bomb. This one's actually a really fun episode. I really enjoy it, and I'm torn between an S and an A, to be honest. An S and an A. You know what? Just for the musical number alone, it's worth it to go into the A. Harley and Ivy. Now, this is the probably another fan favourite episode in which Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy first meet and team up. Some of the animation's a little bit off, but the script is really good, and the voice acting is great. Arlene Sorkin and Diane Pershing are great as Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Mark Hamill as the Joker, obviously, fantastic. I'm giving this one an A. Harley's Holiday is another Harley Quinn-centric episode in which Harley is released from Arkham, but she inadvertently gets caught up in the kidnapping of Veronica Vreeland. It is one of my favourites, actually. I'm going to put it up at the top of an S rank. Heart of Ice, everybody knows this episode's the origin of Mr. Freeze, taking at that point a Z-list character who I think had actually been killed off in the comics at that point, and reimagining him with a more tragic backstory. Wonderful animation. It was directed by Bruce Timm, written by Paul Dini. They're like you'd probably call them the A-team of BTAS, so has to be an S rank. Heart of Steel. This one is another two-parter involving the citizens of Gotham, or I should say the elite citizens of Gotham being replaced by robots. I don't really care for this one. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it doesn't really appeal to me, so it's perfectly fine, but I would forget about it if I could. Now, the follow-up episode, His Silicon Soul, is much better. In this episode, there is a duplicant, I think that's what they're called, or duplicant. Anyway, there's a robot Batman that thinks it is the real Batman. This one, for me, is an A or an S. I'm giving it an S. I'm giving it an S because I really like this episode. I think it's really good. So House and Garden. This is a Poison Ivy episode in which she is seemingly rehabilitated and marries one of her former doctors at Arkham. And wealthy bachelors start getting robbed by mysterious plant creatures. This one is really creepy. Actually, very, very disturbing, and I love it. I think it's great, so I'm putting it as an A. I Am the Knight. This one is about Commissioner Gordon getting shot during a raid that Batman is late to, and Batman basically has a crisis of faith. Starts doubting whether everything he's doing is worth it. I really enjoy this episode. I think it's really good, really well written. There isn't like a marquee bad guy. There's a dude called the Jazzman who was recently in the comics as like a reimagined version of Mr. Zaz, getting tattoos of musical notes for every person that he kills. But I think this episode's great. So it's getting an A. If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? Now this one is the first Riddler episode. I think it's perfectly fine. They reimagined the Riddler as a disgruntled game designer, which I thought was quite interesting. And the last shot of the episode with the Riddler's victim like hiding in bed at night with a shotgun, cowering in the darkness, it's quite a powerful shot. But yeah, it's a good episode. Don't get me wrong, but it's not one of my favourites, so it's going to be a B. It's Never Too Late, another early episode in which an aging mobster, what's his name, Stromwell, I think, is his son has gone missing, and he thinks Rupert Thorne has kidnapped him, and Batman teams up with him to try and persuade him to do the right thing. Solid episode, perfectly enjoyable, but perfectly fine. Now, I've got Batman in my basement. F. I hate this episode. It's bad. Poor animation. I really don't like the notion of junior detectives teaming up with Batman to take out the Penguin. No. I know it's got, some people like it, and that's fine, but it's not for me. So it's going in the bin for me. Now, Joker's Favour. This is, I'm just saying it right now, fantastic Joker episode. It's about the Joker having a run-in with an everyday normal civilian on the road, and the Joker decides to torment that guy and use him in one of his plots many years later. Really great episode. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend watching that one. Next, Joker's Wild. So this one is it's not bad. A new Joker-themed casino opens in Gotham. without the Joker's knowledge or consent, and he decides he's going to blow it up. Perfectly fine. The animation's a little bit wonky in places, but it's perfectly fine. The Last Laugh, another very early Joker episode. I don't like this episode at all. It feels a bit like an episode of Super Friends in a way, because the Joker's got a massive submarine. He's created loads of this Joker gas that he's using to gas all of Gotham City just so that he can steal some jewelry. I'm giving it an E, though, because there is some fun stuff in there with like Captain Clown. I like Captain Clown. The Laughing Fish, excellent episode. So this one is a merging of two stories from the comic books. I think it was the Joker's Five-Way Revenge and The Laughing Fish, in which the Joker, he's poisoned all of the fish so that they've got the big rictus grin, and he tries to trademark them so that he can make a fortune. But of course it doesn't work that way, because fish are a natural resource that you can't trademark. So the Joker goes on a rampage. But anyway, yeah, really good episode. Love it. Next, Lion and the Unicorn, in which Red Claw attempts to steal the codes to some missiles in the UK. And Alfred knows the codes because he used to be a spy, apparently. I'm giving this one a D because I personally don't find it very inspiring. So Lock Up. This one's quite good because it's about Arkham's head of security, who, after being fired for brutalising the inmates, decides that the real problem with society is with the officials, and he takes his revenge on them. It's a good one. It's a nice analysis of Batman versus the slightly more hard edge vigilante, like the Punisher sort of character. I'm going to give it a B, I think. Mad as a Hatter. Now, I really love this episode because Roddy McDowall as the Mad Hatter was fantastic. He's got a really sympathetic voice, and you really feel for Jervis Tetch in this episode to a certain extent, at least until he starts using his mind control chips to get some woman to love him. And he's so sympathetic, as I said initially, but then he quickly becomes like creepy and repulsive, and brilliant episode. I'm going to give it an A. Yeah, I'm going to give it an A. Make 'em laugh. So this one is a later Joker episode. It's about the Joker ruining 3 famous comedians' lives in an attempt to win the Funniest Man in Gotham competition, and it introduces one of my favourite characters in an ironic way, the Condiment King, because he's so awful. He's fantastic. I'm going to give this one an A as well. The Man Who Killed Batman, straight up to the S tier right there. This is a great episode about a bit of a loser wannabe gangster, Sid the Squid, who inadvertently kills Batman, and how the rest of the criminal underworld responds to him is really great. You should definitely watch that if you haven't already. The Mechanic. This is another Penguin episode that's not really that great. I mean, it's not bad by any means. The Batmobile ends up getting totaled in after chasing the Penguin, and Batman has to take the Batmobile to get repaired by his in-house mechanic. And the Penguin basically discovers the existence of this mechanic, and all sorts of hijinks happen. Solid episode. The Moon of the Wolf. This one is another episode that was based on an issue of the comics. It's fine. I think I'll give it a C. Please. There we go. I'll give it a C because the animation's not great, but it's a perfectly fine story. Now, Mudslide. I love this one because I'm really into like classic Hollywood. And so all the old movie references with Matt Hagen movies are right up my alley. I can't in good conscience give it an S because it's not that good, but I'm giving it an A because I love it. So boom. Night of the Ninja. So I mentioned earlier the ninja character Kyodai Ken. This is the episode that introduces him. He's basically targeting Wayne Enterprises and stealing all their money. Perfectly fine episode. I'm actually going to put it on the same level as Day of the Samurai. Nothing to Fear is the introduction of the Scarecrow. It's again one of these early episodes where they hadn't quite found their voice, but it's got that iconic "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman" line in it. So I'll give it a B, even though some of the animation's a little bit wonky. And actually thinking about it, I really don't like the Scarecrow's dumb henchman. I won't hold it against them though. It's an okay episode. Off Balance. So this one introduces Talia al Ghul, and it has Count Vertigo, and Batman and Talia team up to steal a seismic weapon that Count Vertigo has stolen. Again, it's fine, perfectly fine. On Leather Wings. So this was the pilot episode. It's absolutely beautiful, wonderful animation. Good script as well. Great voice performances. I'm giving it an A. Paging the Crime Doctor. So this one is about Matthew Thorne, who's the brother to Rupert Thorne. Used to be a doctor until he pulled a bullet out of Rupert Thorne and didn't report it to the police and lost his medical license. Now he does off-the-books operations for the crime syndicates. Perfectly fine episode. So that's a C. Perchance to Dream. Now this one, I don't love it as much as everybody else. Although it is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman's favourite episode. One day Bruce Wayne wakes up to find that he's living the perfect life. His parents are alive. He's getting married to Selena Kyle. He's the head of Wayne Enterprises. Everything's perfect. And it seems like his life as Batman was a nightmare. But as we know, that is not the case. I'll give it an A. I am going to give it an A. I don't love it as much as everybody else, but I do think it's a very good episode. POV is... So this one is an episode about a police raid that goes wrong. And 3 of the police officers have to testify to internal affairs about what happened. And all 3 of them make references to Batman to varying degrees of reality. So like Bullock is just completely misrepresenting the truth, saying that everything that went wrong was Batman's fault. Montoya's more in the middle, and then there's a rookie cop whose name I can't remember. He talks about Batman as if he was like a mystical, magical being. But it's a solid episode, perfectly good. I'm actually going to give it a B. Pretty Poison introduces us to Poison Ivy. Again, it's an early episode. In this episode, Poison Ivy, I should say Pamela Isley, becomes engaged to Harvey Dent. And then Harvey Dent is mysteriously poisoned. I wonder who's to blame for that. The animation's not always particularly great, but good voice performances. And I really like what this show did with Harvey Dent by introducing him early on, before he was Two-Face. I'm giving it a B. Prophecy of Doom. Yeah, this one is just not great. It's about a con man trying to swindle rich people by acting like he's some sort of prophet, warning them of dangers ahead of them that he is actually orchestrating. Read My Lips introduces us to the ventriloquist and Scarface. This one's really good. It's another one that's got a jazzy soundtrack that sticks out in my memory because it's different to everything that came before it, and it's a good story anyway. I'm giving it an A. Riddler's Reform. Now this is probably my favourite Riddler episode. Straight away giving it an A. The Riddler is out of Arkham. He is seemingly reformed, but anyone that knows the Riddler knows that he cannot resist committing crimes and leaving clues for Batman to follow. I'm giving it an A. Robin's Reckoning. So this is a 2-parter here. I would actually say that this is a fairly rare instance of both parts being equal. Robin's Reckoning is another fan favourite episode, but personally, I don't love it as much as everybody else, but I can see why people like it, so I'll give it an A. The Second Chance. Now this is actually one of my favourite episodes. Harvey Dent is about to go under surgery to have his face repaired when he is kidnapped, and there are 2 suspects, Rupert Thorne and the Penguin. Really good episode. It's got a nice little twist in it. I mean, you can see it coming, but don't care. It's really good. See No Evil is about an invisible man who is trying to have contact with his estranged daughter. Yep, good episode. Quite enjoyable. I'm going to give it a C because, again, it's one of those things that doesn't really stick out in my memory a great deal. But it's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it at all. Shadow of the Bat, another two-parter where I'd say both parts are equal. This one introduces Batgirl after Commissioner Gordon is framed for, I think it was taking bribes from Rupert Thorne. Yeah, B. I can give it a B. It's solid, enjoyable. Showdown. Now, I actually love this episode. I think it's really good. It's primarily set in the Old West and shows the bounty hunter Jonah Hex towards the end of his life coming into conflict with Ra's al Ghul. So, yes. I should probably say Ra's al Ghul because that's what they call him in this show, but if he's Middle Eastern, then it should be Ra's. Anyway, Sideshow, a Killer Croc episode. Killer Croc escapes from police custody and takes sanctuary in the woods with a group of circus freaks. I actually like this episode. It tugs on the heartstrings a little bit, so I'm giving it an A. Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne. Now this one, it's a solid concept. Bruce Wayne infiltrates a spa retreat that's run by Roland Daggett and his doctor Hugo Strange. And Hugo Strange uses a machine to read people's memories to find blackmail material. It's solid, but the animation's a bit uneven in places. I think I'll give it a B, actually, because there's some fun stuff at the end of the episode when Hugo Strange tries to auction Bruce Wayne's secret to the Penguin, Two-Face, and the Joker. Terrible Trio. Now, this one, I mean, it's okay. There's nothing to write home about. It's three bored, rich guys don animal masks and commit crimes just out of boredom. So, yeah, C. Terror in the Sky is the return of Man-Bat. After the events of On Leather Wings, we thought that Kirk Langstrom was cured, but the Man-Bat has returned, and Batman investigates this. I think it's a solid episode. The end sequence on an airplane, actually really cool. Like it a lot. It's primarily because of that scene why I'm willing to give this a B. Time Out of Joint is another Clock King episode. This time he has a device that allows him to slow time. It's not one that I love. Nothing wrong with it at all. Perfectly fine. So I'm giving it a C. Trial. Now, I really love this episode. Let's see if I can get it up on the S rank without having to scroll up. No, I can't. Okay. Spoilers, I'm giving it an S because it's a great episode in which the inmates of Arkham Asylum escape. They take control of the asylum and they kidnap Batman and put him on trial for the crime of creating them. Really good episode analysing not just Batman but his villains as well. Really enjoyed it. Two-Face. Now, as I said before, I'm putting two-part stories together as one rating here, and truth to be told, part one is infinitely better than part two, but part two is still very good. Two-Face part one is actually my favourite episode of the animated series, and I am actually going to give this an S rank. It's really great. I love the way that Batman's hardly in the first part, and it's all about Harvey Dent and his psychological breakdown. Really great episode. Love it to bits. I vividly remember watching this at a hotel in Llandudno when I was a child. Sat on the floor, and I don't know if maybe this is the same across the world, but the big box TVs were on these mounts on the wall, and they were quite high up, and I had to sit like this and up my neck up to watch it. But I sat there and watched it almost without blinking. Loved it. Gave me a bit of a sore neck if I remember rightly, and actually it hurt my neck just to look up then. But anyway, yeah, loved that episode. It's one of my favourites. Tiger. Selena Kyle is kidnapped by a mad scientist and transformed into a cat lady to be a mate for his weird Catman tigress. I'm sorry, I'm giving this one a D. The animation wasn't great. The script wasn't that compelling. It's perfectly fine, but there are some negatives about it, I think. Speaking of negatives, the Underdwellers. It's got another naff villain that I actually quite like called the Sewer King. He's basically like Fagin from Oliver Twist, but he lives in the sewers, and he's got an army of mute boys and girls that he makes rob people in Gotham. It feels like one of those like moral episodes where there's a moral to the story. Again, it doesn't really appeal to me, to be honest. Vendetta introduces us to Killer Croc, and Killer Croc attempts to frame Harvey Bullock in order to get revenge on him. Again, this is a perfectly fine episode. I think I'll give it a B because there are some really nice sequences in there, like the menacing nature of Croc alone, and the final fight between Batman and Killer Croc in the sewers is really cool, actually. So I'm going to give that a B. What is reality? So this is another Riddler episode in which the Riddler traps Commissioner Gordon inside of a virtual world, and Batman has to go in and rescue him. It's fine. I don't really like the depiction of the virtual world. It's very like 1990s vision of the future. Which doesn't really match up with what's actually happened, and maybe that's souring my opinion of it, but I never really liked this episode that much, to be honest, even when I was a kid. The Worry Men. This one is another, spoiler, it's a Mad Hatter episode. There's a nice sequence at the end of this episode with a fight in a wax museum, and you can see some like wax models of some of Gotham's notorious villains. I'm kind of torn between B and a C. I think I'll give it a B. I think, yeah. And then finally, Zatanna. Straight up a B. Zatanna comes to Gotham to do a magic show, and the set piece is making the bank disappear. When the bank reappears, all the money's gone and she's blamed. I suppose I should probably try and put these in exact order. I'll do that really quickly, actually. I probably should have done this as I was going along, to be honest. So, my favourite episode, my top of my list, Two-Face. Right at the bottom, I've got Batman in my basement. All right. Well, that was fun. I've spent way too long doing this. I thought I'd get it done in 10 minutes, and it's actually taken a lot longer. Thanks to everyone that actually sat down to watch this through to the end. I'm sure you'll have thoughts. Leave them in the comments if you want. Make your case for. Maybe I've got Batman in my basement is one of your favorite episodes, and that's perfectly fine. But this is my list, and I think I might change my mind about some of these at some point. I might decide that. I don't know, I might decide that Fear of Victory is actually a B, or On Leather Wings is actually an S, but this is how I'm feeling at this moment in time. I'm quite happy with how this is looking. So, yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and hope you enjoy watching all of my hundreds of shorts of Batman memorabilia.